Hi, this is the Keith Bryan Show at Productronica on day 2, and I'm sat with my very good friend and ex-colleague Dr. David Bernard, who's expert on all things X-ray and is on his second day of visiting the show. So, David, I guess obvious first question is, what do you think of it so far?
Well, thanks for inviting me, Keith, and I really appreciate it. And, well, from my point of view, like I guess many people, it's the first show for 20 months that I've been able to attend, first flights and everything like that. It's surprising how you get out of the practice very, very quickly. And yesterday, it was obviously quiet, but today seems to have been very busy. And I've been struck by talking to the various vendors that although the numbers of people are substantially down, the people who want to be here really have a good reason for being here, and therefore they're looking for stuff because they need it for the business moving forwards. So I think quality, not quantity, but I think most vendors would really like that because of what's so important for their businesses moving forwards after the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think, people have not been able to do this kind of, let's call it equipment evaluation for 20 months anyway. And when they're in this situation, I think, as you rightly say, they, because of COVID, because of cost restrictions, and because of everything, I think pretty much you have to have a reason to be here. The guys who just wanted to come for a day out and drink some beer in Munich are the people that aren't here. And we've always said we'd rather have 100 people on our stand than 100,000 walking past that had no interest.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And it means that there's a meaningful dialogue and people are getting good information and good answers. And from my point of view, also the opportunity to see people in the flesh rather than on a Zoom or equivalent screen, and be able to actually reconnect and have the opportunity to see people, how they're doing, how they've managed to get through the pandemic, and how optimistic they feel about the things moving forward.
Yeah, I've spoken to a few of ex-customers that I remember that I bumped into going around, and they were saying the same thing. It's great because the stands they go and visit have got more time to spend with them. They've still got new equipment here, and people seem to be business-wise relatively buoyant now coming out of the pandemic. So it seems like Productronica will again get a lot of orders placed.
I think you're absolutely right. Although I would say the supply chain issues and lead times is perhaps going to be the concern for the end user. But of course, whoever you buy it from is going to be under the same problems of trying to get, and it's not just the chips, it's steel, it's all the, I won't say mundane things, but I have, but it's more to do with the little bits and pieces that mean you can't complete what you're providing to your customers.
Yeah, and then you've got to get it from wherever it comes from to here, and that's becoming tremendously expensive and also taking a long time.
Yes, I mean, there's going to be some fundamental changes, I think, post-pandemic, but sort of, you look at the global geopolitics and macroeconomic environment, you say is transporting things all around the world. The recent COP26, there's other sorts of pressures that are coming into people's thinking, and onshoring becomes a much more, if not cost effective, absolutely, a more important part of people's environmental footprint as well as commercial footprint.
Yeah, and if you get it made down the road, then you don't have too many problems of actually getting it to your factory.
Yeah, absolutely, and also being able to support clients and spares and all the other things that people need to be able to support their customers, because that's what makes them come back time after time. As you always said to me, it's easier to sell to an existing customer than try and find a new one.
Oh, that's always the best bet. Yeah, I was talking yesterday to a guy from Ventec. They make bare laminate and all of these things, and he was saying, unfortunately, for getting that kind of stuff in Europe, that boat sailed about 10 years ago because all the people that could make laminate all went to China. And he said the problem that they're going to have, which is going to be our next wonderful shortage, is copper foil. So no copper foil, no PCBs, and we're competing now with the battery guys, and apparently they need a lower spec material which is easier to produce and generally makes more money for the people who produce the foil. So he's saying that the cost of his foil is going up tremendously and the lead times are going right out. And obviously if we can't make circuit boards, we can't make nothing.
Yeah, and forget about you can't get the chips coming out of the factory. If you've got nothing to put them on, there's no foundation to make the things that work. So I think there's some very interesting and some difficult challenges that are going to affect what the people here at this show are doing over the next, I would say, 18 months. Because, you know, one problem has a knock-on effect into so many other areas. But in terms of new technology, from the X-ray perspective, where I come from, I couldn't say I'm seeing anything particularly new from what I've seen. There's been some name changes. People, perhaps some of them aren't here that would have been in the past. But they're all still doing strong business for the people who are here at the show, and I think that's a testament that, you know, they're investing in coming where their customers are likely to be.
Yep, yeah, I completely agree with that. And you know, the only things I've seen are possibly some better stuff with machine learning for finding voids and all the other stuff, which seems to be, you know, the direction that people are going in now, rather than a new and better machine.
Well, I think that's interesting. I have my personal issue is that the opportunity for AI and machine learning, when you have a single data field, although many billions of them, there are things that it can find out that perhaps you don't want to find out about, and there's some very interesting things it can really do, and it's being used in many applications. My personal concern is when you have an image where you've got multiple data, and in an X-ray where you've got a three-dimensional approach to it, and if you've only got pictures of a few hundred boards, is that a good enough data set to produce the information that you want? It's not the same as taking pictures of people's knees and arms and things like that, where the envelope of variation is perhaps narrower, and then you need to code it and things like this. So I think this is the issue, is using AI in X-ray where it's most appropriate and gives the best opportunity, and also to be careful not to use it where the results may not give you the answers that are required.
Well, David, thank you for that great insight, and thank you for joining us, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show, and as we always say, see you somewhere around the world sometime soon, my friend.
Many thanks, Keith. Thanks a lot.
SMT Thermal Discoveries are the experts in thermal processes from -50 degrees Celsius up to 450 degrees Celsius. With highly stable reflow soldering systems, vacuum soldering to reduce voiding in solder joints, and whether you need temperature treatment systems with standard equipment or flexible solutions, SMT Thermal Discoveries have the machine to your thermal challenges.
Hi, welcome back to the Keith Bryant Show at Productronica 2021, and I'm sat here with Chris from Solderstar, who's going to tell us about a new piece of equipment that they have, and also show it to us. So, right then, Chris, off you go.
Hi Keith, thank you for having me back. It's so good to be back after 2 years of seeing very few people. It's nice to be around in person and meet people again.
Yeah, it's so good.
So during the 2 years, obviously it was a different time for us, and we had to think of a new way of using our time efficiently. So we actually went out and canvassed our global network distribution and of course our customers as well. And they basically came back and gave us a lot of feedback about the ease of use of data loggers, about simplicity of getting it done, some of the fact they wanted the whole product, if you like, to be auto-configurable, so it would run itself. Basically, like a downskilling by upskilling the actual product itself.
Yeah. Put the intelligence into the product, not the operator.
Exactly. So we went away and we came up with a completely new design data logger. From top to bottom, the whole logger itself is completely different. For instance...
Yeah. First comment I would say is it's small and it's thin.
It is very small. And so where we went with it was we started from top to bottom. Despite the old logger still being a best-in-class product, we decided that we'd actually rethink the whole setup. So we use batteries that we know are going to go into an oven. It seems silly, but for health and safety reasons, why not use the best batteries you can instead of just having a little note in the manual to say be careful with the batteries in an oven.
Yep.
So we had to do a low voltage logger, we had to turn around and completely readdress every part of it. We also came up with a principle of 12 memories.
Oh.
So what that means to the actual customer is he can put it in to one of the Solderstar accessories using the special smart link. Say things like the wave machine, the wave shuttle we'd use,
Yep.
the selective shuttle, the vapor phase, the reflow. Individually, he can put it into each unit and go around his factory and take all the data in one pass before having to go back to a computer and download it. It's totally auto-configurable.
Wow. Yeah, that's sounds like you've done a lot of work during COVID, huh?
Obviously, we had to think of many different things with COVID. Again, as I said, because we had the global supply chain, we had a rough idea what was coming across from Asia first. So we even went as far as creating our own studio for demonstrations and for customer support worldwide. Pretty much like we have here, we had to come up with some sort of a system to make sure we could support all our operations. And obviously one of the times we did spend was reviewing what we're currently offering.
Yeah, it's good to hear a success story that's come out of the downtime that everybody had over COVID, and the fact that you were able to rethink the whole thing, and rather than bring out an upgrade, you sort of started with pretty much a clean sheet of paper and came out with the best thing that you could come up with.
It's having the time. One of the major things we had to make sure as well is that it was completely backward compatible with every unit. We've got thousands of the units out in the field now. It has to be backward compatible so that everyone can use it going forward as well. So it's an easy upgrade for everyone without any trouble through, without needing new products, with new this. It's already good to go and thoroughly tested because we've had the time to test it in our own facility.
Yeah, and again, another benefit of COVID. So how are the customers taking to it?
Outstanding. We've obviously had, for the first time, we've shown it to customers directly. We had 1 or 2 choice customers that we used to do some testing with, but the uptake on it has been absolutely fantastic. We've had our first order on a stand, which is something that doesn't normally happen for our product. So
doesn't normally happen for any product.
No, so it's really going really well in our advantage. The customer itself was actually interested in the facility that, although it has 12 channels as standard, we can link the loggers together to a master logger and take it up each time 12, 24, up to 36.
Wow.
36 channels. And because of the way we've worked it with the memory, we obviously, some of the questions we did get back from customers was other bits of data they were looking for. Perhaps things like vibration, information like that. So the ability we have is the space on the logger can take many different sensors, not just thermocouples, not just, if you like, contact sensors. We can bring many things into play in the future.
But pretty much any sensor that is there, you can connect into your system.
Not any, but we're getting close. We're getting close to covering it all. So again, all we've done is just made sure that we've pushed ourselves further forward, used it so that we can run with the logger for the future and what we see as the future needs for profiling.
Oh, brilliant! Well, thanks for coming in, Chris, and thanks for sharing the. I got to pick it up myself. The wonderful new Solderstar SLX. And this is Keith Bryan signing off from the Keith Bryan Show at Productronica.
SMT Thermal Discoveries are the experts in thermal processes from -50 degrees Celsius up to 450 degrees Celsius. With highly stable reflow soldering systems, vacuum soldering to reduce voiding in solder joints, whether you need temperature treatment systems with standard equipment or flexible solutions, SMT Thermal Discoveries have the machine to your thermal challenges.
Hi, welcome back to the Keith Bryant Show at Productronica 2021. And I'm sat here with Joe Booth, who is CEO of Altus, one of the major distributors in the UK. He's only come in this morning, so I won't ask him too much about the show. I guess the first obvious question is, how's the UK manufacturing industry coming out of COVID?
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for having me on, and nice to be here. And the UK coming out of COVID, it's been a tricky road, actually. Last couple of years have been difficult, especially last year. As you could imagine, a lot of capital equipment sort of fell off a cliff as companies were looking to sort of maintain their bottom line and not wanting to invest. But in this year, really, we've seen this sort of V-shape recovery, which we were hoping for and planning for. And that really comes from where companies are now thinking that there is some movement to spend, there is quite a bright future in the UK. And we've seen that each quarter so far this year, our revenue numbers have been our best numbers of the year, with October at this point being our best month of the year in total, and almost being at the revenue numbers that you'd expect in 2019 and before this chaos kind of begun.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good to hear you're coming back. Any specific bits of equipment that are popular, or is it just generally across the board?
Well, there's, I think, generally across the board. Well, in two parts, I guess. I can talk about kind of the processes that are the most popular, and then with the UK specifically, what we're seeing at the moment is a lot of consolidation. So you would have seen lots of companies, contract manufacturers, being purchased by much larger conglomerates. I think last week Axis was purchased by Cycle, Vanilla Electronics are buying up different contract manufacturers as well. Denchi Group have also made big purchases. And this gives you the kind of feeling in the background of what's happening in the UK. And maybe some government policies and different leaning in the future might allow our industry to grow much more and provide much more to GDP, because you've seen grants being approved, lots of startups coming to the market now where they weren't last year because of COVID, and that backdrop's very, very exciting for the industry in total, with lots of new lines. Now, on the process side, I think what COVID highlighted in the UK is that we've got singing and dancing SMT lines, fully automated, board handling, all the lot. But what a lot of companies don't have is probably the automation in the conventional side, and then of course the component management. Yeah. And this year specifically, we've seen lots of odd form projects, placing these big parts that are really difficult. We've seen lots of conventional assembly lines for hand placement, and then bags of component management. So those looking at X-ray component counters, or AGVs, or smart storage, and small investments here, which are heavily manually driven in normal times, are making massive returns for customers. I mean, I had a project this year for robotic soldering. The ROI on the project was 3 months, because they had 4 operators doing it, and we could not replace the 4 operators, but we could adapt them to a new process with only 1 robotic soldering cell. And so some of the numbers, when you start looking at the conventional side, are just really obvious.
And I think one thing, it's like some of my previous guests have said, COVID gave people some time to look. You know, some staff were furloughed, people were working from home for a while, factories were shut down, and people were, sometimes when you're so close to something, you don't have that sort of bigger picture view. And I think what you're saying is exactly right. People have now said, okay, we need to be leaner, we need to be faster, we need to have better control over all the stuff that we're running, and X-ray component counting, and the robotic soldering, and all the other stuff which was probably in the back of people's minds suddenly came to the fore. And I think with my question with the acquisitions that are happening, are they based on technology, you think, or it's just commercial and they want to get market share?
Yeah, it's a good question. Really, it's a good question. And I think just to go back to your point about engineers having an eye on things, I think process engineers have been shouting out for it for times. It's now that their management go, what, we can't have staff that close together?
Yeah.
What? And it's holding up production. That now they're going, why didn't I listen to you 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And then on the M&A side, it's really interesting. And actually, Altus have kind of benefited ourselves because this year we've brought on 4 new suppliers because one of our competitors liquidated. So we brought on Hella, Ascon, Semtech. We started working with LPKF and Innertech because of what happened with Zen. So for us, it was a massive opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
We inherited 400 installations. In terms of machines in the market, we're now probably the largest in the UK and Ireland, let's say.
Yeah.
But then for other companies, there's 2 ways to look at it. Either the management team of these contract manufacturers have got to an age where they want an exit, or it's strategic and they're going, well, UK is a good place to be in. What if UK opens up trade routes, aero-military for around the world, now that Brexit's happened? Maybe we want a slice of the UK and to get out of the just being in Central Europe. And that means that maybe we offer some sort of strategic leverage to access America, India, Australia, and however the trade deals work out, right?
Yeah. And I think that's on quite a few people's minds as well, because that's if you like the upside of Brexit. I don't want to get into if it was good or bad, but the upside is definitely now we have more control of our own destiny.
And I think with Brexit and with any changes, the only people that it doesn't benefit are the people right at the top of the market. If you're nimble, if you're fast acting, flux is a good thing. And so we're trying just to make the most of the situation that we've got, right? You can't complain about what's happened, it's happened. And now it's all about just capitalizing on it. And so, for example, one of the ways we've tried to shore up our business operations is to set up a new entity in Ireland, to hire local people in Ireland because of transferring machines over to the Irish region.
Yeah.
And Ireland now is the only native English-speaking country in Europe, right?
I suppose so.
The Americans love them,
Yeah.
and so there's going to be big things happening in that region as well, I'm sure, like there might be big things happening for the UK out in the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing, Joe, and it sounds like good news going forward for the UK and good news going forward for Altus. So thank you for coming in and sharing with us.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me.
And that's Keith Bryant for the Keith Bryant Show at Productronica 2021. And we're done. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening and watching.
SMT Thermal Discoveries are the experts in thermal processes from -50 degrees Celsius up to 450 degrees Celsius. With highly stable reflow soldering systems, vacuum soldering to reduce voiding in solder joints, whether you need temperature treatment systems with standard equipment or flexible solutions, SMT Thermal Discoveries have the machine to your